Sagittarius, 21. A child and a dog with borrowed eyeglasses. The assumption really here is that somebody wearing glasses is a student. And in certain primitive cultures, the chief would perhaps find a pair of glasses to wear or a hat. Something that Westerners have and the natives don't have, in order to pretend to be a Westerner and therefore wiser, more intelligent, more knowing. That's where this image makes some sense. The child being in need of guidance. And the question of whether or not the dog can actually help the child is raised. Were it a man or a woman wearing glasses, I think we can say yes, that the child can seek guidance from that. But it's a dog. And it's probable that the dog's level of consciousness is not as high as the child's. But we don't know that, actually. The child could be very young and the dog very intelligent, or the other way around. The dog could be of lesser intelligence than the child. In fact, it's very unlikely, but it's possible. We just don't know. Life is filled with mystery and illusion and lies, things that appear to be so and are not so, things that are so and are hidden away. We just are not given the full picture. It's a mystery. And yet that's not the end of the question. Some people, rather few in number, find that to be fascinating. They might do crossword puzzles for the same reason, that a mystery is simply a motivation for them to learn the mysterious, learn all about the mysterious. And one would hope that spiritual seekers are in that number. We're looking to penetrate through the veil of the mysteries to find out what's going on behind all of this illusion and glamour. And it's worth noticing that the Sufis' term for this world, the world of lies, is quite relevant. We're not being given clear instructions here. So what are we going to do about that? And the normal way to approach some lack of knowledge is to assume that knowledge exists and to find someone who can offer us the path to it. That's the normal approach. And so in this case, if we find somebody who's clearly a little bit more advanced than us, we would want to take guidance from that person. But we've got one or two problems associated with that, and quite a lot of the people on a spiritual path get caught up following someone who is not of particularly high consciousness. They've just learned the tricks of the trade, the glamour of a guru, and those people that cannot tell the difference between a real teacher and a charlatan, they get caught up by the glamour of the guru. Maybe that's their lesson to learn. Maybe the first lesson to learn is to test whether or not your guide actually is of higher consciousness than you. Now, this particular question is fraught with difficulty. And here's the explanation that I've kind of imagined for myself. Unconsciousness is unconscious, by definition. And therefore, it's unconscious of unconsciousness. It's unconscious of itself. So those of us who are just not aware are not aware that we are not aware. Whereas consciousness is conscious of consciousness. So those of us who are aware that we're aware. So when a teacher and a student, or a potential teacher and a potential student come together, the teacher understands that she's in a position to deliver teaching. Whereas the student doesn't know this necessarily. They might be unconscious. And if you're unconscious of the consciousness of the teacher, you're not going to open up to their wisdom. And if you're conscious of the consciousness of the teacher, how come they're a teacher if you're conscious at the same level that they are? We see the difficulty here. So in this question of the child looking at the dog with the glasses, perhaps the child is looking to this thing with glasses, believing it to be wise. Perhaps the dog understands that it's pretending by putting on glasses and is looking for guidance from the child. We just don't know. We just don't know. And in life, we just don't know when we meet somebody whether their patter, their spin is beyond our understanding because they're higher up the scale of things, or a game that they're playing. And that might be to fool themselves and it might be to fool us. But that's how it is. And this is a real danger in the spiritual world. This is not just a philosophical game. It's something I've seen so often. It's almost the general case that somebody who is sincerely looking for a guide can't actually tell the difference between a good one and a bad one. And typically there are more bad ones than good ones, so more people get caught up in this game that charlatans play. Well, to call them charlatans is a bit of an exaggeration, because the teachers who are actually not very advanced don't really know that they're not very advanced, because they're only conscious of what they're conscious of and they're unconscious of the rest. So the first real test of working out whom to follow is to develop the intuition that you need to distinguish between a false teacher and a true one. That's the first test. Now there's another little mystery here which is a bit tricky too, is that the assumption is made that knowledge exists, that truth exists, and you can discover it. And that assumption, I think that's reasonable. Knowledge exists. Yeah, of course, truth exists. I'm not sure about that one. I think that what we do is we make it up. We interpret what we think we see, and we actually project our neediness onto the world so that we see what we need to see, and we create the illusion of truth by that process, and there's no end to it. This is the way of things. This is the teaching in ancient texts from the Hindu tradition particularly, that Maya, they call it. The world is an illusion. All we ever see is a projection of our expectations, our hopes and needs and desires, and that's what we see. It's that profound process that we can't actually analyze the facts of the matter and come to the truth, because there is no objective truth. It's all subjective. So if you convince yourself that life is good and your faith will be rewarded, that's what will happen. If you convince yourself that life is terrible and dangerous and you're going to end up in harm's way and climate change and COVID-19 conspiracy theories and all the rest of it, if that's your truth and you believe that, then that's what you'll make come to pass. And if you listen to people in casual conversation, they tend towards the negative. They tend towards the pessimist point of view. So one of the criteria that I would use in selecting someone to follow, somebody whose advice I might take, is basically whether or not they've sorted it out for themselves. Not bothering at the moment, in the first instance, to listen to their words at all. Just to look around them. And if you find somebody who is claiming to be a teacher, and you look around that person, and you notice that actually their life is confused, there's something wrong, it just doesn't look right, it doesn't feel right, the people around them are not your kind of people, they're all playing the game of follow the leader, which is commonplace, that's what I've seen most of, then that's what the teacher has created. You can't blame the students for that. You've got to notice that the teacher has created that. Yeah, if you find a potential teacher for you who's surrounded by a small number of serious people who are loving and kind and authentic and sincere and reliable, and the teacher's life circumstances are free of stress and they're on top of their life and they're helpful, and you know, if they're actually living the life that you would like to live with the people that you'd like to live it with, then that seems to be the teacher. That's the way you work out whether or not the teacher that you want is the right one for you. And then you fake it till you make it. You put on the glasses and pretend. So you do everything that the teacher does. Follow the words, trust the words, do what he does or she does, and so on and so forth. Copy until actually you've worked out which parts are authentic for you and which parts you need to reject. And then you've learned what that particular teacher has to teach. Then you look for another one until you don't need another one and you've got it down.